Hi and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to talk about the differences between psychologists, psychiatrists and counsellors. I'm going to talk about their unique job roles, their specific modalities and their different educational pathways. And at the end of the video, I'm going to go over some handy tips and tools to help you navigate and visualize the psychological services space. So this is predominantly an educational video. And I hope that this facilitates some skills, tools, and resources to help reinforce people's independence when managing their own health. But just a disclaimer, I'm coming from the Australian landscape and I have more experience and understanding of the Australian landscape. So if you're in another place, it's likely that a lot of what I'm saying is similar. But as far as it goes for like health coverage and options, you'd be wanting to do your own research because it does vary place by place. So yeah, with anything, even if you don't live in a different place, do your own research before you work to implement any of these things that I'm talking about, and take care. So moving straight into it, let's go over an overview of the job roles of psychiatrists, psychologists, and counsellors. What is a psychiatrist? A psychiatrist is a medical doctor that specialises in the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of mental, emotional, and behavioural disorders. The job role often focuses on prescribing medication and diagnosing mental disorders. While the primary focus is on biological aspects of mental illness and medication management, they also learn and utilise various forms of talk therapy to help patients address their mental health conditions. From my experience though, many of them don't really use much talk therapy. There is like a very heavy emphasis on this is about diagnosis, this is about finding medications that work with you, and that's what we're going to focus on. So it really is best to see a psychiatrist when you want help with prescriptions and management of medications. And I think they work best when they're part of a sort of like interconnected team of people supporting you, like a support care network. So like you're not just seeing them, you're seeing your GP, you're seeing a psychologist as well. You're getting other perspectives and other different forms of help. I think that is the best way to do it. And to go see a psychiatrist, you'd be looking at like getting a referral from a GP or like somebody else that might be referring you off. And then if you've got that referral, that might enable some like bulk billing or medical rebates that they might be offering. But not all of them offer it. And some of them you don't actually even need a referral, but you have to do your own research to figure out which psychiatrist, whether it's like an organization or if it's like an independent practitioner, what they're going to offer and how they prefer you to be referred. Okay, so a psychiatrist focuses on medication. What does that make a psychologist? Well, a psychologist is different to a psychiatrist as they don't usually have a medical degree. They will most likely have a psychological science degree, followed by further education specified to clinical psychology. And a psychologist uses empirical and science-backed therapies to treat and manage mental and behavioural disorders. Some psychologists are also able to diagnose particular conditions. So if you wanted a diagnosis, you could see a psychiatrist and you could see particular psychologists. Not every psychologist offers diagnosis. That's another thing that if you want to see them, you have to find out before you go. So therapies that are really often used and sought out that psychologists can utilize are things like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, somatic therapies like drama and dance therapy, and other special areas like art therapy and animal-assisted therapies. It is possible to manage your mental health condition by just seeing a psychologist alone, but it really depends on the severity and the type of condition that you may be having. So it's best to just sort of get like a recommendation of what your support care network thinks that you should do. Do you need to see a psychiatrist as well as a psychologist, or are you happy and comfortable just seeing a psychologist? And to often see a psychologist, you would also get another referral from your GP or whoever it is that might be referring you off. And through this referral, you can often access bulk billing and medical rebates. But again, just like psychiatrists, they don't always offer rebates. So it's best to just go on the website, like have a look and see, or maybe just ask them, do you offer rebates, to just like 100% guarantee that like you won't be paying like that full price, because some of these therapies, and a lot of therapy in general, it's expensive. Okay, so a psychiatrist offers like medication and like diagnosis, is really on the medical side of things, and a psychologist is really good for like talk therapy. So what does that make a counsellor? Well, a counsellor provides like talk therapy as well, and the services are really designed to support individual challenges. They're not able to diagnose mental health conditions, and they cannot offer you medication. Counsellors and psychologists may share many of the same therapeutic frameworks, like person-centered therapy, CBT, and mindfulness, but they'll often target issues from a less scientific standpoint and aim not to treat, rather to unpack personal issues and circumstances. Counselling is generally shorter in duration, such as through like what you'd imagine crisis counselling or school counselling is, but it can be also helpful for longer periods of time, such as if you need like family or relationship counselling, where individuals will probably want to see the counsellor for an ongoing period of time. And this is the really interesting thing about the role of a counsellor, is just how versatile it is, because you can have counsellors that really specify in like youth issues, or counsellors that specify in addiction, or counsellors that specify in like crisis counselling, people that help with like homeless problems. It just is so versatile, and they use so many different frameworks and different modalities, and it kind of really can be in times so fluid in a way that psychology cannot, because psychology is really restricted by like empirical evidence and very, very strict codes of conducts, and they have to keep very strict notes. Counselors also keep notes, but the role can just be utilized in such a different way that a lot of clinical psychologists can't fit themselves into a position doing. It is most helpful when you're experiencing a form of adversity or stress in your life, and you want to talk with a neutral party to help you find ways of coping and managing. And they're not going to be from this like sort of scientific perspective of a psychologist, where they're going to be telling you how to like kind of hack your behavior, but they're just going to be offering this like space for you to talk into, and it's going to be very person-centered, and it's going to be sort of you taking the lead, but being able to debrief about these things. So counsellors don't offer bulk billing. So you can get a referral to a counsellor, but most often you sort of just like find one and you kind of like go and see them. But I do know that a lot of educational and workplace facilities do offer free counselling from within their space. Like if you have some sort of like issue and you need help, whether it's like workplace or like home life, they might just have this like support that you can just sort of like go and see, and that will usually be short term, maybe like one session, maybe 3 or 5. And when that's finished and they think maybe you might need more help, they might refer you off to like somebody else, like an actual psychologist or a GP who can help you like further. Okay, so moving forwards, I'm going to talk about the different educational pathways it takes to get into each of these roles. And this is important to know. I find a lot of misconceptions like within this, like a lot of people just don't really know what it takes to become a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And I think it's important information, because if you know what their scope of practice is, you know exactly how they're going to be able to help you. So starting with psychiatry, the first step to becoming a psychiatrist is to complete an undergraduate or a bachelor's medical degree. They then complete a 1-year internship before applying for registration as a medical practitioner, and then they can apply to the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists, also known as RANZCP, to undertake specialist training in psychiatry. This typically takes 5 years and includes supervised rotation in hospitals and clinics. After the training, they are then admitted to the Fellowship of the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists, known as FRANZCP, and will be eligible to practice independently as a psychiatrist. This is massive. This is like 11 years of study. This is such a massive pathway, and they are learning a lot of modalities within this. Some of it is talk therapy and psychotherapy, which psychologists specialize in, but mostly the degree is just really focused on medicine. So after a psychiatrist finishes all this training, they can then go on to do like further study where they specialize in particular fields, like child psychiatry, like working particularly with children, or forensic psychology, which is another really interesting field. So if you're looking for a psychiatrist online or like in person, whatever, where you're reading their information, and you see one that says specializes in particular field, like maybe it's like, I specialize in child psychiatry, that means that they've either done further education or they have like significant experience within this like particular field. So to become a psychiatrist, that's a massive educational pathway. But is it just as big to become a psychologist? Well, to become a psychologist, one usually does a Bachelor in Psychological Science, where units are focused on psychotherapy, biological and cognitive science, and social sciences. This degree can also be combined with like counselling. After the Bachelor, then you must do a Master's in Psychology. Two of the most common masters are clinical, which focuses on diagnosing and treating mental health conditions, or general psychology, which is more of like a broader scope. After this degree, a person then transitions into general practice, where they are supervised for about 2 years before they can receive endorsement and full registration as a clinical psychologist. So the classes kind of really differ to the ones within the medical degree, because you're doing a lot more talk therapy modalities. You're looking more at the social sciences, you're looking at cognitive sciences, you're kind of like looking at things like lifespan development and some of like the neuroscience aspects, but you're not focusing too much on the biological aspects, which would kind of lead you to like treat someone via the medical model, like with medications. But all up, without further specialization, full time, it takes someone about 6 years to be eligible for provisional registration. After this period, it is common for psychologists then to go into further study that sort of specializes in particular fields like EMDR or maybe like some somatic therapies. It's also possible that someone might go ahead and do more training in psychotherapy, and then they can work with like those sort of modalities. Okay, so like full-time, 11 years for psychiatry, 6 years for psychology. One focuses on the medical aspects, one focuses not so much on the medical aspects. What about counselling? So counselling as a profession in Australia is still really, it's unregulated. It's an unregulated field. And therefore, technically, like anyone can be a counsellor, regardless of their training. But usually to seek employment as a counsellor, you must have a relevant degree. And it really depends on the role of the company, what sort of registration they actually want with the governing body. It's important as registration offers a significant amount of safety for both you and the company hiring, that you do have registration, but not every role needs registration. So if you are going down the route of registration, what does it take to be registered? To become registered, some governing bodies like ACA accept as little as a diploma of counselling, basically, but others will require you to have completed a bachelor's degree in counselling, and it's likely that this pathway will require significant volunteering and work placements. There is also a Masters of Counselling available that may give you registration without a bachelor's specified for counselling. Like what I mean is that like maybe you don't do your bachelor's in counselling, but you do your master's, and therefore you can get registration because you've gotten that master's. From this pathway, a counsellor can also sort of look at areas like psychotherapy, if they do like another bachelor, which will further qualify a person for more psychotherapeutic modalities that are more in line with psychology. So it's really interesting because they can sort of avoid doing the psychology degree and as many years in the psychology degree, but they're still working with similar modalities. So units that you might expect someone to have done in a counselling degree include things like social work, legal principles, working with at-risk individuals, ethics, and like some skills that you would expect them to sort of like use, a person-centered therapy, solution-focused brief tools, and writing applicable case notes. Counselling is just so much broader in its pathways, and that comes with a lot of positives, but also some negatives. Like if you wanted to be a counsellor, like it's possible that after only a 2-year diploma, you might land a job in counselling, and that's really cool. You didn't have to go through like all the stuff that psychologists kind of went through. But in saying that, if you were going to go see a counsellor, they might not have as much experience, and it's still like, although they have a lot of like ethics and regulating bodies, and they have a strong code of ethics, it's unregulated. It's still an unregulated field, and you have to sort of do your research when somebody says, I'm a counsellor, because what does it mean? Like, do they have registration? Are you going to be safe seeing this person who calls himself a counsellor? All right, so that's a summary and some notes on the educational pathways. Let's move on to tools and resources that I recommend when accessing and navigating the mental health field. Okay, so really quick, basic and first suggestion is like your current state. For example, I live in Queensland, so it would be Queensland Government website, and specifically the government's mental health services page. It has lots of information and links to get you started, from issues that need immediate attention to pages about understanding mental health needs. There are links to psychologists, psychiatrists, and counselors, so like all three of them you can find links to, as well as different online and phone-based supports. My second recommendation is just like a whole bunch of different directories that are really good when you're trying to find like a specific individual. Like this is really good if you don't really like the recommendation your doctor gave you, or you want to find someone who like you 100% know is going to be like, they're going to offer the things that you need. So the first one is the Australian Psychological Society's Find a Psychologist engine. The engine lets you search for psychologists who may be in private practice, and they're not always as easy to locate on Google, so that's really helpful. It lets you filter by issues you wish to address, such as like mental health, trauma, or relationships, and via location. You can even go further and refine searches by filters like availability and Medicare rebate types. Other search engines include the Oz Clinical Psychology Association, ACA for registered counsellors, PACFA, and the Registered Counsellor and Psychotherapists. Beyond Blue also has a similar search engine that does include psychiatrists, and that can be helpful because some of these don't offer like searching for particular psychiatrists. Another really great site that I like to use to assist in psychology is called Very Well Mind. And Very Well Mind offers like pages, summaries, and information and like infograms and things like that about different modalities that you might be using. For example, if you go to a psychologist and they say, I think we should do cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. Let's do this. And I'm just sort of going to give you a brief overview, but we've only got an hour, so I can't really explain in depth like what this is, but like, let's use it. And you kind of go home and think like, oh my God, what was that? Like, I don't even know what this person was talking about. You can go to Very Well Mind and you can look up cognitive behavioral therapy, and they'll kind of give you like a really great sort of overview of what the therapy is and how to use it. And I think it's a really good tool because you can sort of read it and say like, this is going to work for me, or this is not going to work for me. Or adjacent to that is like, you look up the different therapies and you find which one is going to work for you, and then you go to your psychologist and you say, hey, like I want to use this one instead. All right, so my last recommendation is Headspace's online communities. And Headspace's online communities offers a dedicated space for young people or people supporting young people to connect, talk, and discuss. It's a really great safe space to seek community and just sort of like talk to people who will make you feel maybe like a little bit less alone with the things that you're struggling with. Alternative to this is Hey Peers. Hey Peers is another community support group for all ages that has dedicated spaces for online group chats aimed at supporting and connecting individuals with like really specific issues. All right, so that actually concludes my video today. And this was an interesting video to make. I actually learned a lot while doing this, and I hope that in like sharing this, that this can sort of help other people to be more aware of like the industry, and also like to help them when navigating the industry themselves. And I think it is just like a good thing to talk about in general, because these fields always just feel so mystified and people often just don't really know like what the job roles entail. But you know, like hopefully this has sort of like cleared up some of that. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys for being here. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. And I make like content like this and around these subjects. It's really interesting for me, and I hope like ultimately that this will sort of like help people. So thank you guys once again, and I hope to see you soon.